Lieutenant Commander Gregory Hayes sat in the communications center of Earth Defense Station Olympus, watching the clock tick past the scheduled check-in time. New Geneva should have reported in 40 minutes ago. He tapped his console, running another diagnostic. Everything showed green. The equipment was working perfectly. "Still nothing?" asked his supervisor, Commander Karen Wells, walking over with a coffee cup in hand. Gregory shook his head. "Dead silence. I've tried all primary and backup channels. It's like the whole colony just vanished." Karen frowned. "What about the other settlements? Try New Shanghai, try Horizon Station." Gregory's fingers moved across the console. He opened channels to all 13 human colonies scattered across 4 star systems. The silence that came back made his stomach tighten. Nothing, not even static. Just empty void where human voices should be. "Get Admiral Cole," Karen said quietly. "Right now." Within an hour, the Situation Room filled with Earth's top military commanders. Admiral Cole stood at the head of the table, her gray hair pulled back tight, her face carved from stone. She listened as Gregory explained the communications blackout. "Could be a solar storm," suggested General Frank. "Some kind of interference." "Across 4 separate star systems," Karen Wells countered. "At the exact same time, that's not interference, that's impossible." Admiral Cole raised her hand for silence. "Send probes, fast ones. I want eyes on those colonies within 72 hours. She turned to her intelligence staff. "Pull everything we have on local alien activity, traffic patterns, military movements, anything unusual." The room emptied quickly. Gregory returned to his station, monitoring the probe launches. The small automated ships jumped to faster-than-light speed, racing toward the silent colonies. All he could do now was wait. 3 days felt like 3 years. Gregory barely slept. He kept his console active around the clock, hopping for some signal, some sign that the colonies were okay. Maybe their transmitters had failed. Maybe some weird space phenomenon had blocked communications. Maybe. The first probe arrived back from New Geneva on the morning of the 4th day. Gregory was drinking his 6th cup of coffee when the alert chimed. His hands shook as he pulled up the data feed. The holographic display activated above his console. Karen Wells and Admiral Cole arrived within minutes, summoned by the automated alert. They stood together, watching the playback from the probe's sensors. New Geneva had been a beautiful colony. 10,000 people living in dome structures on a planet with purple skies and 3 moons. They grew food, conducted research, raised families. Gregory had visited once 3 years ago. He remembered children playing in the Central Park, their laughter echoing through the transparent dome ceiling. The probe showed something very different now. The domes were shattered. Scorch marks covered the ground in patterns that could only come from orbital weapons. Buildings had been reduced to melted slag. The agricultural fields were burned black. Bodies lay in the streets, caught in the open when the attack came. Gregory felt his coffee cup slip from his fingers. It hit the floor, but he barely heard the sound. "Rewind it," Admiral Cole said, her voice cold and hard. "Go back to the beginning." Karen worked the controls. The playback jumped backward, showing the probe's approach. There in the data stream were fragments of the colony's final transmission. Someone had managed to get a distress signal out before the end. The message was broken, corrupted by damage to the transmission equipment, but enough survived, enough to understand. A woman's voice, crackling with static and fear. Unknown ships in orbit, not responding to hails. They're massive, dozens of them. Oh God, they're powering weapons. This is New Geneva, we need help, we need. The transmission cut off. The hologram showed the exact moment. Beams of energy stabbing down from space, turning the peaceful domes into funeral pyres. But the probe's sensors had caught something else. Ship signatures. The attacking vessels had left traces in the radiation spectrum, patterns unique to their engine designs. The computer analyzed the data and produced a match. Imperium. Admiral Cole stared at the identification for a long moment. They were one of the major powers in the Galactic Council, a species that controlled dozens of star systems. They were known for their military strength and their belief in dominance through fear. "Show me the other colonies," Cole ordered. One by one, the probes returned. One by one, they told the same story. Horizon Station destroyed. New Shanghai burned, Liberty Point massacred, 13 colonies, 4.7 million human beings gone. The last probe came from the smallest colony, a research outpost called Hope's End. It had only 300 people, scientists mostly. They studied the local ecosystem, sent back reports about new plants and interesting geological formations. The probe found no survivors, but it found something else. A message carved into the wall of the main habitat with a plasma torch. Someone had lived long enough after the bombardment to leave final words. "Tell Earth we loved them. Tell them we didn't surrender. Tell them to remember us." Admiral Cole watched the footage 3 times. Then she turned off the display and looked at the assembled officers. Gregory saw something in her eyes he had never seen before. Not anger, not rage, something colder and far more dangerous. "Send a message to the Galactic Council," Cole said. "Inform them that we have evidence of an unprovoked attack on civilian populations. Request an immediate emergency session." "And after that?" asked Corinne Wells. "After that, we prepare." Cole walked to the window overlooking Earth below, the blue planet turning slowly in the void. "They wanted to teach humanity a lesson. Fine, class is in session." Gregory returned to his station. He pulled up the star charts, marking each lost colony with a red indicator, 13 lights representing millions of lives. His sister had lived on New Geneva with her husband and 2 children, 8 and 6 years old. He had promised to visit them next month. The communications console beeped. Incoming transmission from the Galactic Council. Gregory opened the channel. The response was brief and formal. The Council acknowledged Earth's message. They stated that the Imperium had filed territorial claims in the regions where human colonies had been established. The colonies had been in violation of galactic law. The response had been appropriate and proportional. Appropriate, proportional. Gregory read the message twice to make sure he understood. Then he forwarded it to Admiral Cole and shut down his console. He sat in the dark communications room, listening to the hum of machinery. 3 weeks later, Earth's government declared 30 days of mourning. Flags flew at half-staff. Memorial services filled stadiums with grieving families. Leaders gave speeches about peace and restraint and diplomatic solutions. But in the secure levels beneath Earth Defense Command, different preparations were. Admiral Cole assembled a team. The best tactical minds, the most experienced combat veterans, the engineers. They worked in silence, building something that had never existed in human history. A war fleet. Gregory volunteered immediately. So did Corinne Wells. So did thousands of others who had lost someone in the colonies. They didn't talk about revenge. They didn't need to. Everyone understood what was coming. On the final day of mourning, Gregory stood in the Memorial Garden in Geneva, Earth. The garden held 13 trees, 1 for each colony. Families had placed pictures and flowers at the base of each tree. He found his sister's photo under the New Geneva tree. She was smiling, holding her children happy. He knelt down and touched the picture. "They think this is over," he said quietly. "They think we'll accept this and stay quiet. They're wrong." Above Earth in the orbital shipyards, the first warship of humanity's fleet took shape. They named it the ECS Retribution. It would not be the last. They had wanted silence from humanity. They were about to learn that some silences come just before the storm, and this storm would burn across the stars until every last debt was paid in full. 6 months after the massacres, Captain Daniel Cross stood in the main hangar of the Titan shipyards, watching welding sparks rain down from the skeleton of the ECS Vindicator. The ship was enormous, larger than anything humanity had built before. A dreadnought-class warship, designed for one purpose only. Daniel had been retired when the colonies died. He had spent his last 3 years on a small farm in Montana, growing vegetables and trying to forget the border skirmishes. Then Admiral Cole called. She didn't order him back. She simply told him what had happened and asked if he wanted to help make it right. He had packed his bags within the hour. "Beautiful, isn't she?" said a voice behind him. Daniel turned to see Dr. Helen approaching, carrying a data pad covered in technical diagrams. Her eyes had dark circles under them. She hadn't been sleeping much either. "She's a monster," Daniel replied. "Good," Helen pulled up a schematic on her pad. "Because I've designed monsters to arm her with. These are the new plasma torpedoes. Standard yield would punch through most alien armor, but I modified them. They now target specific shield frequencies. They use crystalline matrix shields. These torpedoes will tear through them like they're not even there." Daniel studied the design. Before the attack, Helen had been studying alien life forms and their evolutionary traits. Now she weaponized that knowledge. Her sister's entire family had died on New Geneva. She had turned her grief into something cold and efficient. "How many can we produce?" Daniel asked. "Enough," Helen closed the pad. "Admiral Cole wants production numbers that can sustain a 2-year campaign. We're going to give her enough to sustain 10 years. Across Earth and its orbital facilities, the same scene repeated itself. Factories that once built colony ships now assembled warships. Research labs that studied peaceful applications of technology now designed weapons. Training facilities operated around the clock, teaching soldiers how to fight in zero gravity, how to board enemy vessels, how to kill efficiently. Earth's industrial capacity had always been impressive. The planet's heavy gravity and harsh environment had forced humanity to become expert engineers just to survive. Now that expertise turned toward war. The shipyards produced vessels faster than anyone predicted, each one stronger, better armed, more dangerous than the last. Commander coordinated the tactical planning from a secured facility in Colorado. He had made his reputation during the border skirmishes with unconventional strategies that turned superior enemy forces into confused, defeated wrecks. Now he planned something far more ambitious. Stood in front of a holographic star map, 15 red dots glowing against the darkness. Each dot represented a military installation. Weapons depots, fleet bases, communication hubs, the backbone of their military power. "We hit them all at once," explained to the assembled officers. "They won't expect simultaneous strikes. Their doctrine relies on concentration of force. They'll assume we'll attack their strongest point. Instead, we attack everything." General Frank studied the map. "That requires perfect coordination. If even one strike force is delayed, they will have time to respond." "Then we don't get delayed," zoomed in on a supply depot near border space. "We've been running simulations for 3 months. Every captain knows their target. Every crew has trained for their specific mission. They think we're primitives. Let them keep thinking that until our weapons are hot in their space." While Earth prepared for war, Ambassador Park made one final attempt at diplomacy. She returned to the Galactic Council chambers, a massive station orbiting a neutral star. Representatives from 40 species gathered in the central forum, their various forms of life seated according to ancient protocols. Walked to the human delegation platform. She carried a simple data crystal containing evidence. Communications records, peace treaties, trade agreements. Everything that proved humanity's colonies had violated no laws, threatened no one. The council chamber fell silent as she activated the crystal. Holographic images filled the air. Happy colonists building homes, children playing in parks, scientists making discoveries, normal people living peaceful lives. Then the images changed, the attacks, the destruction, the bodies. 4.7 million souls, said, her voice steady despite the rage burning in her chest. Men, women, children, they broke no laws, they threatened no one, they simply existed in space the wanted. Al rose from the platform. He was massive, his exoskeleton covered in ceremonial scars from 100 battles. His translator device gave his words a mechanical edge. "The humans established colonies in territory claimed by the Imperium. We gave them warnings. They ignored us. We responded as galactic law permits." "You gave no warnings," replied coldly. "Our records show no communications from space until your weapons were already firing." Al laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. "Your species is young, weak, emotional. You will accept this lesson and remain in your corner of space. This matter is closed." Several council members nodded agreement. Others looked uncomfortable but said nothing. The pattern was clear. The strong did as they pleased. The weak accepted their fate. This was the way of the galaxy. Looked at Al for a long moment. Then she smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "You mistake our restraint for weakness," she said quietly. "You think because we seek peace we cannot wage war. You think because we value life we fear death. You're wrong on every count." She turned to address the entire council. "Earth gave you a chance to do the right thing. You chose otherwise. Remember that in the days ahead." She walked out of the chamber without waiting for dismissal. Behind her, the council erupted in confused debate. Several species demanded Earth be censured for the threat. Others began quietly calculating whether humanity actually posed a danger. They would have their answer soon enough. Back on Earth, Admiral Cole stood on the bridge of the ECS Retribution. The flagship was complete, its weapons charged, its crew ready. Around it floated 126 more warships. Dreadnoughts, carriers, destroyers, support vessels. The entire might of human military power assembled in one place for the first time. 340,000 personnel. Engineers, soldiers, pilots, medics, every one of them a volunteer. Every one of them had lost someone in the colonies. Cole activated the fleet-wide communications. Her image appeared on every screen, in every ship, in every ready room. "I won't insult you with speeches about glory or honor," she said. "We're not here for conquest. We're not here to prove humanity's strength. We're here because the Galactic Council decided our families were acceptable casualties, because the thought they could murder millions and face no consequences." She paused, looking directly into the camera. "They were wrong. We're going to show them what happens when you push humanity too far. We're going to show the galaxy that some lines cannot be crossed, not without paying the price in full." Cole's hand moved to the command console. "All ships begin pre-jump sequence. Set course for space. It's time to collect our debt." Captain Daniel Cross sat in the command chair of the Vindicator, watching his crew work through the final preparations. His tactical officer, Lieutenant Shaw, looked young. Too young for what was coming, but his eyes held the same cold determination that filled every person on every ship. "Course locked in, sir," reported. "Jump drive at full power." "Good." Daniel opened a channel to engineering. "Doctor, status on the plasma torpedoes." Helen's voice came back immediately. "All tubes loaded, targeting computers calibrated. They'll never see us coming." Daniel allowed himself a small smile. He expected Earth to seek more negotiations, to send angry messages, to eventually accept their loss and move on. Instead, humanity had spent 6 months preparing for total war. "All ships report ready, Admiral," Commander reported from the Retribution. Admiral Cole looked out at the assembled fleet. 127 ships, against the might of the Imperium's thousands. By every logical calculation, this was suicide. But humanity had stopped caring about logic. They cared about justice. "Execute jump," Cole ordered. Space tore open. The fleet vanished in flashes of twisted light, hurtling through faster-than-light space toward their targets. Behind them, Earth turned in the void, empty of its defenders for the first time in generations. In the Galactic Council chambers, sensors detected the massive energy spike of the fleet's departure. Alarms began to sound. Species that had ignored humanity's pain suddenly realized they might have made a terrible mistake. Al received the alert in his command center on Prime. He read the report, then dismissed it with a gesture. "Let them come," he told his subordinates. "We will crush them as easily as we crushed their colonies. The humans need to learn their place." But deep in his fortress in the private moments before sleep, Al felt something he had not felt in decades: uncertainty. The humans had not begged, they had not negotiated, they had simply prepared, and now they were coming. The storm was about to break. The Frontier Outpost X floated in the darkness, monitoring the border between Imperium space and the neutral zone. Commander Al sat in the command center, reviewing supply reports and trying to stay awake through another boring shift. Nothing ever happened this far from the core worlds. The alarm shrieked without warning. Al jerked upright, his claws hitting the console. "Report." "Mass signatures emerging from FTL," his sensor operator stammered. "Multiple contacts, dozens of them right on top of us." The main display lit up with red indicators. Human ships materialized from nowhere, appearing inside the station's defensive perimeter. Their weapons were already hot, their shields already active. They had jumped with precision that should have been impossible for such a young species. Al opened communications. "Unknown vessels, you are in violation of Imperium space. Withdraw immediately or—" The ECS Vindicator opened fire. Captain Daniel Cross watched the first salvo impact the station. Helen's modified plasma torpedoes worked exactly as designed. The crystalline shields flickered and died, unable to adapt to the specific frequency disruptions. Kinetic rounds followed, punching through armor plating like it was paper. "Target their communications array," Daniel ordered. "I don't want them warning anyone." Lieutenant Shaw worked the weapons console. "Torpedoes away." The station's transmission tower exploded in a ball of superheated metal. X was now isolated, unable to call for help, unable to tell anyone what was happening. Daniel opened a single channel to the dying station. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "This is for New Geneva." The Vindicator's main guns fired. The station broke apart, scattering debris across the void. No escape pods launched. The humans had targeted life support first, then weapons, then propulsion. The crew never had a chance. Across 15 different locations, the same scene played out with brutal efficiency. Commander's coordinated strike hit every target within a 10-second window. Military installations that had stood for centuries vanished in minutes. Fleet bases, weapons depots, supply stations, all burning. The military command structure struggled to respond. Reports flooded in from every direction. Human ships attacking everywhere at once. Impossible numbers, impossible coordination. Their standard doctrine called for concentration of forces, but the enemy had scattered them thin, forcing responses in too many places. Admiral or commanded the Fourth Fleet from his flagship, Dominant Will. He was a veteran of 40 campaigns, undefeated in battle. He had expected the humans to come eventually, but not like this, not with this level of tactical sophistication. "All form defensive positions around the core worlds," he ordered. "Let the humans exhaust themselves on the frontier. When they reach our main fleet, we'll crush them." But the humans didn't exhaust themselves. They hit hard, destroyed their targets, and jumped away before reinforcements arrived. They fought like predators, striking from shadows and vanishing before retaliation could land. Dr. Helen monitored the weapon's performance from her station aboard the Vindicator. Every torpedo, every missile, every shot was being tracked and analyzed. The shields were adapting, but too slowly. By the time they adjusted to one frequency, the humans had already moved to another. "Captain, we're getting energy readings from space," reported the sensor officer. "Large fleet concentration forming near VAX 7 system." Daniel studied the tactical display. "How many ships?" "At least 200, maybe more. They're grouping up." "Good." Daniel opened a channel to Admiral Cole aboard the Retribution. "Admiral, they are massing at VAX 7. Looks like they're done reacting and ready to fight." Cole's voice came back steady. "Then we give them what they want. All strike groups rendezvous at the following coordinates. It's time to see if they can handle us head-on." The human fleet regrouped in deep space, just outside sensor range. 127 ships versus over 200. The numbers favored but numbers had never been humanity's strength. Pulled up the battle plan on his display. "They will form a traditional wall formation. Heavy ships in front, carriers behind, support vessels in the rear. They'll try to overwhelm us with massed fire." "So we don't give them a wall to shoot at," Daniel said. "We go through them." "Exactly," highlighted several positions on the map. "Fast attack groups hit their flanks, draw their fire. While they're distracted, our dreadnoughts punch through the center. Once we're inside their formation, their size becomes a liability." Admiral Cole listened to the plan and nodded approval. "Make it happen. All ships, battle stations. This is what we came for." The human fleet jumped into VAX 7 system. They emerged in perfect formation, their timing synchronized to the microsecond. Across from them, the Fourth Fleet waited, confident in their superior numbers. Admiral saw the human formation and allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. "They're attacking head-on. Fools, all ships prepare to fire. Let's end this quickly." But the humans didn't attack head-on. At the last possible moment, their formation split. Fast destroyers and frigates peeled off to both sides, their engines burning at maximum thrust. They moved faster than ships could match, a benefit of being built in Earth's heavy gravity. Everything about human vessels was over-engineered by galactic standards. The formation tried to track multiple threats. Their firing solutions fell apart as human ships danced through their kill zones. Torpedoes that should have connected struck empty space. Beam weapons that should have carved through hulls missed by meters. Then the human dreadnoughts hit the center. The Vindicator led the charge, its heavy armor absorbing hits that would have destroyed lighter vessels. Daniel Cross stood on the bridge, watching the distance close. Capital ships loomed on the display, massive and intimidating. "All forward batteries fire," he ordered. The Vindicator's weapons unleashed hell. Helen's plasma torpedoes ripped through shield generators. Kinetic rounds punched deep into armor. Missile clusters overwhelmed point defense systems. The lead battleship staggered under the assault, its hull breaking apart in sections. "Keep moving," Daniel commanded. "Don't give them a stationary target." The human dreadnoughts carved through the formation like knives. They didn't stop to finish kills. They just kept pushing forward, leaving crippled ships in their wake. The wall formation collapsed as ships tried to rotate and track the enemy. They crashed into each other, weapons firing in all directions. Admiral Orr watched his perfect battle plan disintegrate. The humans fought with a savagery he had never encountered. They accepted damage that would make other species retreat. They pressed attacks that any logical commander would abandon. It was like fighting a force that didn't care about survival. "There," his tactical officer said, horror in his voice. "They evolved on a high-gravity planet with aggressive predators. Combat is natural to them." Or felt something cold settle in his chest. They had assumed humanity's peaceful expansion meant they were soft. They had assumed wrong. "All ships fall back to defensive positions around VAC 7 station," he ordered. "We need to." The transmission cut off. A human strike force, led by Commander Price's Special Operations team, had infiltrated the dominant will. They moved through the ship like ghosts, targeting command systems and communications. The flagship went dark. Without their admiral's coordination, the Fourth Fleet began to fracture. Individual captains made their own decisions, some fighting, some fleeing. The humans exploited every gap, every moment of confusion. Gregory Hayes, now serving as intelligence officer aboard the Retribution, monitored the battle data. "Admiral, we've located the command station where the colony destruction orders originated. It's in this system, on VAC 7 station." Admiral Cole looked at the tactical display. The station was heavily defended, but the fleet was in disarray. It would never be more vulnerable. "Captain Cross," she transmitted, "I have a target for you." Daniel read the coordinates and understood immediately. The station where someone had given the order to murder 4.7 million human beings. The place where humanity's nightmare had begun. "Understood, Admiral. We're on our way." The Vindicator broke from the main battle, accelerating toward VAC 7 station. Defense platforms opened fire, their beams scoring the dreadnought's armor. Alerts screamed across the bridge as systems took damage. "Hull breach on Deck 7, reported the damage control officer. "Shields down to 40%. "Keep going," Daniel ordered. He opened the fleet-wide channel. "This is Captain Cross. I'm transmitting the names of everyone who died on New Geneva. Every man, every woman, every child. I want them to hear who they killed." The names began broadcasting on all frequencies. Sarah, Tate. Little Woo Park, age 6. David, Min. On and on, thousands of names, spoken by human voices to an enemy that had thought them acceptable casualties. The Vindicator smashed through the final defensive line. Its hull was burning, its engines damaged, half its weapons offline. But it was close enough. Daniel looked at his crew. Young faces, old faces, all wearing the same expression of grim determination. They knew what came next. "Abandon ship," he ordered quietly. "Everyone to the escape pods now." "Captain, you need to come with us," Lieutenant Shaw said. "Negative, someone needs to guide her in. Get off my ship, Lieutenant, that's an order." The crew evacuated, leaving Daniel alone on the bridge. He aimed the dying dreadnought at VAC 7 command station, locked the course, and activated the final protocol. The Vindicator's power core began overloading. "Tell Earth," Daniel transmitted to Admiral Cole, "tell them we didn't surrender. Tell them it was worth the price." The dreadnought hit the station at full speed. The power core detonated a microsecond later. The explosion lit up the system like a newborn star, consuming the command station and everything around it. When the light faded, nothing remained but debris. Admiral Cole watched from the Retribution, her face carved from ice. Around her, the Fourth Fleet was in full retreat, their confidence shattered. They had lost over half their ships. The humans had lost 7. "All ships pursue," Cole ordered. "Make them remember this day. 3 months into the war, the Galactic Council chambers erupted in chaos. Representatives from 40 species shouted over each other, their translation devices creating a wall of overlapping noise. On the central display, maps showed the impossible. Territory was shrinking day by day, system by system. Ambassador Park sat in the observation gallery, silent. She had not spoken in the council since her final warning. She simply watched as the species that had ignored humanity's pain now panicked at humanity's response. A representative stood, his tentacles waving for attention. The humans must be stopped. They're violating every principle of proportional response. The council must intervene. And tell them what? Snapped a delegate. That they should accept the murder of their civilians. You saw the evidence, the attack without provocation. That's a matter of interpretation, they argued. Territorial disputes happen. The human response is excessive. Finally stood. The chamber fell silent. She walked to the speaker's platform, her movements slow and deliberate. Excessive, she repeated. 4.7 million dead. That was acceptable, but our response is excessive. She looked at each delegation in turn. Where were you when we needed the council? Where were your calls for restraint when weapons burned our children? No one answered. You had your chance to do the right thing, continued. You chose silence. Now Earth chooses justice. Don't ask us to stop until the debt is paid in full. On Prime, Al reviewed reports that made no sense. Human forces were everywhere, striking targets that shouldn't have been vulnerable. His commanders reported strange tactics, psychological warfare, attacks that seemed designed more to terrify than destroy. One report detailed a human special operations team that infiltrated a supply depot. They could have destroyed it. Instead, they left behind a recording device. When soldiers arrived, it began playing sounds from the destroyed colonies. Children laughing, families having dinner, mourning songs from New Geneva's Central Park. The depot garrison surrendered without firing a shot. They're breaking our morale, observed General X. They want us afraid. Then we show no fear, Al growled. We have conquered dozens of species. We will not bow to these primitives. But fear was spreading anyway. Soldiers whispered about the humans, about how they fought like creatures possessed, about how they took damage that should kill them and kept attacking, about how they never retreated, never surrendered, never stopped. Commander Price led his Special Forces team through another operation, this time hitting a communications relay deep in territory. His team moved through the facility like shadows, disabling guards without killing them when possible. Keep them alive, ordered. I want them to tell the story. They planted charges on the relay equipment and left the same calling card they always did. A recording. This time it was from Horizon Station. A father reading bedtime stories to his daughter, his voice gentle, full of love. The story ended abruptly with the sound of alarms and explosions. His team vanished before the charges detonated. Behind them, the guards listened to the recording over and over, unable to shut it off, unable to escape the reality of what their government had done. Aboard the Retribution, Admiral Cole received casualty reports. 23,000 human deaths, against 800,000 casualties. The numbers should have brought satisfaction. Instead, they brought weight. Dr. Helen entered Cole's office without knocking. Her eyes were red, her hands shaking slightly. I need to talk to you. Sit down, Helen. I created weapons that killed hundreds of thousands of people. Helen stared at her hands. I keep telling myself they deserved it. They killed my sister, her husband, their children, but I can't sleep anymore. I close my eyes and see what my torpedoes do to ships full of living beings. Cole stood and walked to the window overlooking Earth. You think I sleep? I send thousands of people into battle every day, young men and women who trust me to use their lives wisely. Some of them don't come back. That's on me. So how do you keep going? Because if we stop, it means their deaths were for nothing. Cole turned to face Helen. We're not doing this for revenge. We're doing it so no other species will think they can murder millions and face no consequences. When this is over, the galaxy will remember. They'll remember what happens when you push humanity too far. Helen nodded slowly. And when it is over, what do we become then? That's the real test, isn't it? Cole said quietly. Any species can wage war. The hard part is keeping your humanity while you do it. Intelligence Officer Karen Wells entered, carrying urgent reports. Admiral, we've intercepted communications. They're pulling forces back to defend their core worlds, and we found something else. She activated a holographic display. Evidence that 3 other council species had colonies destroyed by over the past century. They accepted compensation and stayed quiet. Cole studied the data, so this wasn't an isolated incident. No, ma'am, they have been doing this for decades. Humanity's crime wasn't violating territory. It was refusing to accept being victims. "Get this information to Ambassador Park," Cole ordered. "Let the Council see what their silence has been protecting." The human fleet approached Prime. The orbital defense platforms bristled with weapons. Hundreds of ships formed protective layers around the planet. It was the strongest defensive position in space. Admiral Cole transmitted terms on all frequencies. "This is Admiral Cole of Earth Defense Command. We offer the following terms: complete disarmament of military forces, war crime tribunals for all commanders involved in the colony attacks, reparations for the families of victims. Accept these terms and this war ends." Al's response came within minutes. "You dare make demands? You are outnumbered. We will crush you as we should have crushed your colonies from the beginning." "Then we do this the hard way," Cole said. Commander initiated the orbital blockade. Human ships took positions around Prime, not attacking, just waiting. They jammed communications, destroyed any ship that tried to leave or enter, cut the government off from their empire. No bombardment, no genocide, just containment. Days passed, then weeks. The blockade held. On Prime, supplies began running low. The population grew restless. The government that had promised easy victory now couldn't explain how a younger species had brought their empire to its knees. In the Galactic Council, desperate representatives approached Ambassador Park. A diplomat spoke for the group. "Please, Ambassador, we understand you're angry. We understand you feel justice is being served. But this blockade could starve billions. Show mercy. Show that humanity is better than the..." Looked at them with cold eyes. "Now you care about civilians? Where was this concern when our children burned?" "We made mistakes," the diplomat admitted. "We should have acted, but please don't let this turn into genocide." "Genocide?" Pulled up images on her display. "These are prime cities. Do you see bombardment? Do you see burning buildings? We could have turned their world to glass. Instead, we wait. We give them chances to surrender every single day." She turned to face the full council. "You want mercy? We're showing more mercy than you did. We could have done to them what they did to us, but we won't. Because unlike you, we remember what it means to have principles." The council members looked away, ashamed. On Prime, the government began to fragment. Military commanders surrendered individually, their forces no longer willing to die for a war they couldn't win. Regional governors declared independence. The empire that had seemed unshakable was collapsing from within. Al made one final broadcast to the people. "This is not over. We will fight to the last. We will never bow to these aliens. Death before dishonor." But his words rang hollow. The people knew the truth. The humans had won, not through superior technology, not through overwhelming force, through sheer determination and the willingness to pay any price for justice. Commander Price's Special Forces team received new orders. Infiltrate Prime. Capture Al, bring him to trial. The mission took 3 days of careful planning and flawless execution. His team penetrated the capital city, breached the command bunker, and surrounded the in his own headquarters. Al expected to die. He had given orders to kill millions. He knew the humans would want blood. Instead, placed restraints on him and read formal charges. "Al, you are under arrest for crimes against humanity and violations of galactic law regarding civilian populations. You will stand trial." "Kill me," Al demanded. "I will not face your justice." "You don't get that choice," looked at the commander with cold contempt. "You wanted to teach humanity a lesson. Now we teach you one. Actions have consequences." They brought Al aboard the Retribution. Admiral Cole met him in the detention area. Though was chained, his armor removed, his weapons gone. He looked smaller without them. "You should have killed me when you destroyed VAX 7 station," he said. "Quick death would have been mercy." "This isn't about mercy," Cole replied. "It's about justice. You ordered the deaths of 4.7 million people. You're going to answer for every single one." She handed him a data pad. "Start reading. Those are the names, all of them, every man, every woman, every child your weapons killed. You're going to read them all, out loud, every single name." Al looked at the pad. The list went on for thousands of pages. "This will take months." "Yes, it will." Cole turned to leave. "And when you're done, the trial begins. Then you face the families. Then you face punishment. You wanted to make an example of humanity. Congratulations, we're making one of you." His voice broke after the first 100 names, but the humans made him continue. 18 months after the first shot was fired, the Imperium formally surrendered. The treaty signing took place aboard the ECS Retribution, floating in neutral space. Admiral Cole and Ambassador Park sat on one side of the table. Representatives, including surviving military commanders, sat on the other. The terms were harsh but not genocidal. Territory would be reduced by 40%. Their military limited to defensive forces only. All weapons research halted. Reparations paid to victim families. Most importantly, their government would be restructured under Galactic Council supervision. The representative, a diplomat named N, signed with shaking hands. "This will destroy us." "No," replied. "You destroyed yourselves when you chose murder over negotiation. This gives you a chance to rebuild into something better." Cole added, "You wanted to make an example of humanity. Instead, you became an example of what happens when power is wielded without conscience. Learn from it." The treaty was signed, the war was officially over, but the real work was just beginning. Lieutenant Commander Gregory Hayes, promoted to full commander, coordinated relief efforts to civilian populations. Despite everything, Earth sent food, medical supplies, and rebuilding materials. The galaxy watched in confusion as the victors helped their defeated enemy. "Why are we doing this?" asked a young ensign helping load supply ships. "They killed millions of us." Gregory looked at the supplies being prepared. "Because if we don't, we become what they were. We're showing the galaxy that humanity fights for principles, not revenge." Dr. Helen returned to her original field of xenobiology. She decommissioned her weapons research and established memorial research stations on the sites where colonies once stood. The stations would study local ecosystems, conduct peaceful research, everything the original colonies had done. On New Geneva's ruins, she planted a garden, earth plants growing in alien soil, a reminder that life continues even after tragedy. Commander faced a military tribunal for certain battlefield decisions. Some of his tactics had been brutal, pushing moral boundaries in the name of victory. The tribunal reviewed his actions, heard testimony from subordinates, examined every order he had given. In the end, they cleared him of wrongdoing, but requested reassignment to training duty rather than active command. He had seen enough war. Now he would teach the next generation how to avoid it. The war crimes trials began on a neutral station. Galactic Council observers attended, as did representatives from victim families. Al and 73 other commanders faced charges of crimes against civilian populations. The evidence was overwhelming. Communications records showed they had received intelligence that human colonies were peaceful research outposts. They had known there were children present. They had attacked anyway because they believed humanity was too weak to respond. Families of victims, parents who lost children, children who lost parents, communities torn apart by violence. Each story carved deeper wounds into the record of what they had done. Al never showed remorse. Even as he was sentenced to life imprisonment, he maintained that he had acted in interests. Some beings never learn. The Galactic Council underwent massive reorganization. The old system that had allowed strong species to prey on weak ones was dismantled. New protocols were established for territorial disputes, requiring mediation before military action. Permanent monitoring stations were set up to watch for aggression. Earth received a permanent council seat with veto power over military actions. No species could launch attacks on civilian populations without Earth's review. Some council members resented this. Others understood it was necessary. Ambassador Park addressed the reformed council on the day of its first official session. "Humanity didn't ask for this war. We didn't want this power, but you left us no choice. Your silence killed our people. Your inaction made genocide acceptable. That ends today. From now on, the galaxy has protectors who will act, not just discuss." She held up a data crystal. "This contains evidence that 3 other species had colonies destroyed by the over the past century. You all knew. You all stayed silent because it wasn't your problem, until it was your problem." Several council members tried to defend their past actions. Cut them off. "Save it, we're not here for apologies. We're here to make sure this never happens again to anyone. That's the only thing that matters." Intelligence Officer Karen Wells presented her findings to Admiral Cole in a secure briefing. "They weren't unique. 7 other council species have used similar tactics against weaker neighbors in the past 50 years. All were covered up or ignored." Cole studied the data, and now they're terrified. They know if they try it again, Earth will respond. Is that what we want to be? Karen asked. The galaxy's enforcers. No, but we are what we need to be right now. Cole closed the files. Maybe in a generation or two we can step back. Right now someone needs to stand guard, that's us. On Earth, memorial ceremonies honored the fallen. A massive monument was constructed in orbit, visible from the surface. 4.7 million names inscribed in crystalline panels that caught the sunlight. Each name represented a life stolen, a future. Admiral Cole, now retired, spoke at the dedication ceremony. She wore civilian clothes, not her uniform. She had given enough orders, sent enough people to war. These names represent why we fought, she said to the gathered crowd. Not for conquest, not for glory, for justice, for the principle that innocent lives matter, that peace is worth defending, that silence in the face of evil is its own form of evil. She paused, looking at the names scrolling across the memorial. We didn't fight to become conquerors. We fought so no other species would have to build a monument like this, so no other parents would lose their children to senseless violence. That's the legacy of those whose names we honor today. The crowd stood in silence, no applause, just respect. Commander Price and his Special Operations team were reassigned to training Galactic Council peacekeeping forces. They taught other species about non-lethal tactics, hostage rescue, surgical strikes. The humans who had been so effective at war now taught others how to prevent it. During one training session, a young officer asked, "Commander, how did you stay so effective while fighting an enemy you hated?" Thought about the question. By remembering we were fighting for something, not just against something. We weren't trying to destroy we were trying to create a galaxy where what happened to our colonies could never happen again. That's a different kind of fight. Ambassador Park reviewed proposals for renewed human colony expansion. Dozens of species now requested human partnership and protection. They offered resources, technology, trade agreements, anything to have Earth's shield extended over their own settlements. Gregory Hayes, promoted to Admiral and now commanding Earth's Defense Coordination, asked if humanity was ready to expand again. We just spent 18 months at war. Our people need time to heal. Our people will never stop healing, replied. But life continues. We can't let fear stop us from building a future. That would make the deaths meaningless. She approved 3 new colony locations, all in partnership with other species. This time, the colonies launched with defense fleets and rapid response protocols, and treaties making clear that an attack on these colonies would bring the full weight of Earth's military power. The galaxy understood the message. These new colonies were untouchable. 5 years after the war ended, a small ceremony took place on what had once been New Geneva. Representatives from Earth and several Galactic Council species gathered at the Memorial Research Station Dr. Helen had established. The garden she had planted had grown. Earth plants thrived in alien soil, mixing with native vegetation to create something new and beautiful. Children from the new generation of colonists played nearby, their laughter echoing across the landscape. Helen stood beside Ambassador Park, watching the children. Do they know what happened here? They're taught, replied. Every child in every colony learns about New Geneva, about Horizon Station, about all of them. We don't hide our history. Good, Helen knelt and touched one of the flowers she had planted. It was blooming, its petals catching the light of this world's 3 moons. They need to remember, not for revenge, for vigilance. On Prime, a new generation was also learning. Young attended schools where human teachers worked alongside local educators. They learned accurate history of the war, not the propaganda their government had fed them. They learned about the colonies their military had destroyed. They learned about the families torn apart. It was uncomfortable, it was painful, but it was necessary. One young student X asked his teacher, "Why didn't the humans destroy us when they won? We killed so many of them." The teacher, a human named Professor Hayes, Gregory's younger brother, answered carefully. Because destruction would have been easy. Building something better is hard. Your people made terrible choices, but you're not responsible for what your ancestors did. You're only responsible for what you do next. X thought about that. What should we do? Make sure it never happens again, to anyone. That's how you honor both our dead and yours. The war memorial names were broadcast annually across both human and territories. Every year on the anniversary, both species observed a moment of silence. Humans remembered their lost families, remembered the cost of unchecked aggression. Some healing is never complete, some wounds never fully close, but both species learned to carry their history forward, using it as a guide rather than a weight. Admiral Cole spent her retirement writing. She documented every decision she had made during the war, every life lost, every victory and defeat. Not to glorify conflict, but to ensure future leaders understood the true cost of war. Her final book ended with a simple statement. We proved humanity could wage total war. We proved we could win against superior numbers. But our greatest victory was proving we could hold on to our principles even in our darkest hour. That's the real measure of a civilization. Commander, teaching tactics at Earth's military academy, always ended his courses the same way. Strategy wins battles, tactics win engagements, but principles win the peace. Never forget which matters most. The galaxy changed after the War of Final Reckoning. Species that had once preyed on the weak reconsidered their policies. Aggressive expansion became less common. Diplomatic solutions became more valued, not because the galaxy had become gentle, but because everyone had seen what happened when you pushed humanity too far. Earth had answered genocide with overwhelming force, but they had also answered victory with mercy. That combination, ruthless in war but principled in peace, made them truly dangerous, because the galaxy couldn't predict them, couldn't intimidate them, couldn't buy them off. Humanity had proven they would fight for justice, even when it cost everything, and they had proven they would extend that justice to everyone, even former enemies. That was the real lesson of the War of Final Reckoning, not that humanity was strong, though they were, not that they were clever, though they were that too, but that they were willing to be both warrior and healer, destroyer and builder, harsh and merciful. The colonies were gone, but their memory lived on, in the new settlements protected by Earth's fleet, in the reformed Galactic Council, in the children learning better ways, in the monument orbiting Earth, its names glinting in the sunlight like tears turned to crystal. The dead were honored, the living had learned, and the galaxy understood that some species, when pushed beyond all limits, don't just fight back, they change everything. On the memorial station at New Geneva, a plaque bore simple words. They came in peace. They died in violence. We answered with justice. May this never be needed again. That was humanity's final answer to the galaxy. Not a threat, not a promise of revenge, just a simple truth. Push us too far and we will respond with everything we have. But give us peace and we will build a better future for everyone. The War of Final Reckoning was over, but its lessons would echo across the stars for generations to come.